Hello, hello. How are we today? Welcome to Friday. We've made it to the end of week one of the international break. And what a week one it was. What I thought would be really, really slow and boring and tiresome has turned obviously into quite an interesting international break, which I'm a little bit thankful for, especially this week. Next week, I'm going to be out of town for a few days. But I'm glad that we had something to discuss this break, to be honest, because I remember the last one I was struggling. I haven't even had to make stat videos. I made one. I haven't even had to make stat videos and tactical videos. In fact, it's been like 3 days since we've actually talked about football, like football itself. Kind of nice. At the same time, I'm a little bit itching for United to get back into action and everything. But I hope you're all doing well on this Friday. As you make your way in, please, yes, toss a like on the video. Toss a like on the stream. It helps me a lot. It's free to do. You know what it is. And it makes a big difference. But yes, everybody, how are you all doing? I hope you're good. There's a few things I do want to discuss today as we get into it. I want to talk about Bruno's comments, sort of confirming what we heard earlier. I want as well to talk about Joshua Zirkzee and Maynu's situations, what's happening with them. And then I want to have a little bit of a chat about the academy, about some of the comments made, and a few other things as well to get into this, to get into everything, just to discuss. And I want to discuss in terms of an opinion, and as well as, you know, what the view really is on the academy that reflects Sir Jim's comments, where I think others are taking it sort of to offense, the comments that he's made on the academy, and all of that. What do you mean about the underwater cables? Does it mean something? No, I just blame the underwater cables when I'm late, because there's a delay between here and there. Your family will understand if you need to cancel your holiday. No, absolutely not. I don't want to cancel my holiday, but I will be doing some videos while on holiday. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to bring my laptop. I'll bring my camera, and I'll bring my microphone, and we will do some videos while we are there. So don't worry about that. I'll have it set up to record a few things either early in the morning or late at night, just to keep you all up to date on things. You know what it is. You know how it is. So yes, a few things to discuss. If you haven't watched the video I did this morning, 18 minutes long, summary on the situation with regards to the takeover, and all of that as well. I tried to put things in a very brief, concise format and perspective. Now, I'm not always brief and concise when I sit here and I talk to you guys, so I always try to at least follow it up with something that's a little more brief, a little more concise, a little more focused in terms of, you know, clearing up what it was actually happening, what's going on with all of that. Make sure to check out that video. It's doing really well in terms of viewers and numbers. People are really interested in it, and people are responding really well to it. I think things are explained really, really well there also. Is my son doesn't quite get watching sports yet. He plays football. I'll be going to his game tomorrow, and he's quite good at it, but he doesn't quite get watching it yet. He likes what I'm doing. I've started catching him like watching some videos and things on his iPad from time to time about like watching some games and stuff. So we'll get there. We'll get there. It's a little hard, I'll be honest. One of the things that that is a little bit difficult. I need to get him to come in and do watch-alongs with me, to be quite honest, because I think he would be more interested in watching, obviously, with me. So I probably need to bring him into the watch-alongs and just watch games and all that, so he gets it and likes it. He attended a few of them in the past, but I think I got to get him to get more. How long did it take your wife to get used to you talking to internet people in your spare time? Oh, not that long. She was cool with letting me kind of be a weirdo, but she knows who she married, so okay. But yes, here we go. Let's start with Bruno Fernandes. That would be a good place to start. That would be a good a good thing to start. Earlier in the week, obviously, we even got an article from Simon Stone and such saying that Bruno has closed the door to Saudi for the future and all of that. And he's closed the door to Saudi for the future and doesn't want to go. Now, Bruno was asked about this in the press conferences recently, and he said that he wanted to stay at United. He couldn't picture playing in Saudi right now, and that was pretty much it. So clearly there wasn't so much on this at this point in time. There's still a decent possibility that Bruno ends up leaving at the end of the year to somewhere else, but more likely, if he does, it's going to be to somewhere in Europe. Again, Barcelona, Bayern, and a few Italian clubs are interested in Bruno. Obviously, we'll see where we end. We'll see where we get to as the season concludes. And then as the season concludes, and then, we'll see. His representative, his agent, has done his job on a few occasions recently. They're not reading that out. Must be some words in there. First time on your channel. United before Jan transfer window are 15th on league table. What do you do? Honest answer, please. Interesting. You want my opinion? If United were what? You're saying if United were 15th. Oh, it's because the dollar amount was too low. Okay. If United were 15th coming into the January transfer window, if we were in 15th at Christmas, like Arsenal were under Arteta, I would be changing the manager before that. I think the team's too good to be in 15th by Christmas. So don't get it twisted there. I certainly believe that the team is too good to be in 15th by Christmas. So I'd be changing managers earlier than that. You're talking about a lot of games between now and then. Another 10 games. If we were in 15th, I'd just be letting go of the manager because obviously he wouldn't have made an impact at that point in time, or we wouldn't be on an upward trajectory. But you would have to go and get a permanent manager, I think, in order to be able to recruit well in January. I think the plan wouldn't change in terms of player recruitment if we were in 15th by January. You would have to go and you'd still need to go and get a midfielder. You get a different manager. They want to play a back four. It doesn't matter. You still need a new manager. I mean, you still need a new midfielder no matter what. So I wouldn't change my plans. I would go and get a new midfielder as my top priority. No matter what, that should be the plan in January. A lot of the plan that we have shouldn't change based on where we are, based on the manager, based on this, based on that. We need a new midfielder. We need to rebuild a few other positions. None of that should change based on our league position. We simply need more players in certain positions as well in order to sort things out. But yeah, so to answer your question, transfer window wouldn't change much for me. But yeah, Bruno probably stays, but again, is staying for now. Doesn't go to Saudi. There will be clubs in Europe that are interested. I think a lot of it's going to depend on where we finish, whether he feels and the club feel like it's the right time to keep going. Is he the midfielder that we need for the future, or is he somebody that he should be moving on in the future, and we should be, adding more in these positions?
Can I quickly ask, is it possible hypothetically for the Glazers to be able to sell their stake without the rest of the club being sold?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Glenn, yes, good question, because a lot's been made of the drag-along rights and the idea that if the Glazers were to sell their shares, that they could force Sir Jim to sell shares, and that's true too. However, it's not a requirement either. They can. If somebody comes in and will only buy the whole club, yes, they can force that deal to be accepted. Someone comes in and says, hey, I just want the Glazers share 60%. I'll partner up with Sir Jim. That's fine too. And there's no requirement that the whole club has to be sold in one fell swoop. I think Ineos have a few more rights though. If it's not sold in one fell swoop, I believe that Ineos would technically be able to get the same deal. I have to look into that again. I don't remember, because there's different provisions for whether it's a full sale or not. But no, there's anything could be possible. It's not a requirement that the whole club is sold. It could well be that it's just partial. If something were to happen, we have no idea. So yeah. But Bruno likely to stay. And obviously that raises that question. Well, like not going to Saudi, maybe we'll go to other places in Europe. And obviously what happens with Bruno certainly raises the question of what's happening with Mainoo moving forward. If Mainoo is a bit part player come summer, he'll probably go. This is part of the decision that has to be made by next year. Now, again, if we're back in Europe and all of that is happening and there's more games, then certainly it's a slightly different situation that we're looking at that time. Should we be there? But yeah, Mainoo will probably want to go in summer. Obviously, he's going to be looking at his options even in January. The club are very unlikely to let him go in January. I can tell you that. It's certainly unrealistic that they're going to want him to let him go in January. Again, the club's perspective, they would like to keep him. They'd like to build up things with him. They'd like to have a future with Mainoo. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But obviously there has to be a long-term plan, and I think that the plan can't be too long for Mainoo to get into the side. There's a lot of months between now and January, a lot of games between now and then, a lot of games between January and the end of the year. So we don't know what's going to happen on that front, but certainly there are these concerns for Kabi and such. And you've seen kind of a lot of the reports and interviews and questions being put to journalists, to Simon Stone, to others about Kabi and Zirkzee and all of that. And we're just running into this issue where at the moment there's just not enough games to go around for everybody right now, and we're not that stable. And we'll talk about the academy in a minute, but we're just not that stable. My personal opinion, what I would like to see happen next summer, is that Bruno moves on, and Mainoo becomes the starter in that position. Obviously, I want to see Mainoo play more this season. I want to see him perform well this season. I want to see him succeed this season. I want to see him grow as a player this season into the guy who takes over from Bruno moving forward. That's what I want. That's what I hope is the outcome. I think that's the plan. Whether that's how things end up or where we end up, we don't know. But I think that that's the idea. That's where they want things to go. That's where they would like things to go. We'll see if that is where things go or not, but that would be, at the end of the day, the plan. So we'll see. That it's an unknown in that respect as to how this is all going to shake out. I hope that's what happens, and I think that would be the ideal situation. Now, Zirkzee is a little bit of a different story. The club do like Zirkzee. Again, they want Zirkzee to be around. They want him to play, but it's hard to justify it at this point in time, and obviously he wants to play. So I think this is one that, as I've said before, they've been looking at the potential of, if he does depart in January, of going for a more senior striker, of getting a different player in the door to come in. Yeah, I mean, I can see quite a few things it is quite likely there, because, and I don't think that necessarily even anybody's wrong in this respect. Here's how I see it, okay? The first summer, we ended up with Lenny, De Ligt, Mazraoui that I think look like good transfers. Ugarte's not really found a place in the team and been successful. Zirkzee's not really found a place in the team and been successful. The first summer, there was, with Ten Hag still there and things like that, there was certainly a different idea. One of the ideas behind bringing Joshua Zirkzee in that summer was, there was a thought that was there at the end of Ten Hag's tenure to play in this sort of false nine setup with Garnacho and Rashford runners. And the problem is that they all like left and the whole plan changed, and we didn't have the whole team set up in place and all that, but we didn't pay an outrageous amount of money for Joshua Zirkzee, 35, 37 million, something like that. He's a good player. He's got good potential. It might just be that, and he was injured this summer, unfortunately. It might just be that he doesn't quite fit. We don't quite fit him, and he goes. I would like to see him make it, but I still question, like, I liked what he brought instead of Rasmus Højlund last year, because Højlund couldn't pick up the ball. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't build up play. He couldn't play back to goal. He couldn't help us get up the pitch. Šeško's doing all of that. Šeško's doing all of that, and he adds that box presence. Šeško's been fantastic in the build-up. Šeško's been picking up the ball deep. He's been a target man. He's been back to goal. He's been running. He does everything. So, like, we don't really need, in a respect, Zirkzee anymore. I think Zirkzee makes for a decent 10, but then you've got Cunha, who's got more pace, and Mbeumo, who's got more pace, and Mount, who looks really, really good. I think Zirkzee's more similar to like a tall Mount, if I were to look at how he plays. I'd like to see him stay. But like, being injured the whole time in the preseason certainly didn't do him any favors, and it's hard to see where he's going to get a lot of minutes. I mean, injuries, right? Injuries could change that. We saw, Cunha went down, and then Zirkzee came in like right away in the against Burnley. So, like, yeah, if there's more injuries, Zirkzee will have his time, and that's why I think it's still presumptuous today to say what will happen. Because I think he would like to make it at United. I think he would like to be successful at United. I think United would like to be successful with him. And I think he's a good, talented player. And we kind of need a squad. But because we're one game a week and pretty healthy at the moment, it's not like providing that much by way of minutes. It's not providing that much by way of minutes for some of these guys, for other options for them to come into the team and to play. Yeah, I know against City, then he didn't start him. He played Ahmad at left hand, but I have a feeling that'll change. I have a feeling, I don't think we're going to be seeing, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Ahmad in the wingback role, like more staying there. And that was a mistake. Don't get me wrong, Bitcoin, like that was definitely a mistake. Ahmad should have been out wide and Zirkzee should have been the 10, but then you could make the argument. I think the biggest thing against Zirkzee there was the last game against Sunderland. It makes me think he's not going to have many minutes. He subbed on Maynu as a 10. I think there's a much bigger priority given to getting Maynu minutes than Zirkzee. Because Maynu is getting not getting a ton of minutes, but he's getting a lot more than Zirkzee. And I think that if Kabi's getting subbed in at the 10, well, there's not going to be a lot of minutes for Zirkzee. If Zirkzee gets subbed deep, you can move Bruno up to 10. Like, if we're trying to prioritize getting Kabi on the pitch, which I personally think is a bigger priority, and I think it obviously is for Amram too, despite some of the chatter, given that he has subbed him on 6 games in a row, subbed or started 6 games in a row now. I think Zirkzee's only played in 2. Or fewer. He's played very, very few minutes. It's not a lot for either, but I think Kabi has like 3 times Zirkzee's minutes or 4 times his minutes already this season. So if the priority is getting Kabi on the pitch, it's even fewer minutes there for Joshua Zirkzee right now. We'll see what happens. He is thinking about going, and we're thinking about strikers. I don't know who, but obviously someone more similar as a traditional 9 would make more sense, so that we have 2 in the team at this point in time. And that way we don't have to put Cunha at the 9 when we're losing a striker as well. Because why is Cunha at the 9? Is because he can still run in behind. He's offering you a bit more. So I guess we'll see there. But yes, Zirkzee, considering his options, certainly that is totally true. I really like him though. I don't want to give up. I don't want to be negative on him because I think he's a really cool player. I think he's got a really interesting skill set, and I would love to see. It really sucks we don't have Europe because we are feeling the pinch where we should be able to be building a semi-deep squad, of players who are like that we can use in different roles and different positions, and we'll need them next year. We will need these guys next year. I think we're getting Europe. We will need them next year. We'll need them when AFCON comes at the end of December. We'll need these guys. We will need them. Even when the FA Cup comes, we will need them. But like right now, it's rough. You're getting 4 games and an international break. These guys are getting no chance. And the international break part of it is big too. They're getting no chance to get into the team, find any rhythm, and prove anything, even if they were going to get a chance before the next international break. So they're getting left out of the international squads, and it creates a bigger problem. These breaks are killing us, and we're only going to get 4 more games. And then you're going to go, well, when are they going to really get a chance? When are we really going to get a chance? I don't know. And so we're definitely the lack of games is hurting here. Definitely hurting here. It's definitely hurting here. AFCON, AFCON scares me too. Like, what are we gonna do out there? Go get one of the youth and put him out wing back. I'm telling you, just not Dallo. Get one of the youth, throw him out at wing back. So anyway, we'll see. We will see. It's an interesting time. But in terms of Zirkzee and Mainoo, that's where we are. And that kind of brings me to the main thing I wanted to discuss today was a little bit of the academy, aspect as well. When we talk about Kobbie Mainoo and that whole situation, I got to tell you, like, I'm a bit, it's a bit funny, like this whole academy thing. I'm sensitive to it. I'm sensitive to the whole discussion that is surrounding the academy, and all of that. But I'll tell you what's a bit funny to me, right? It feels as though, and I don't really know why. Why is there such a big, like, I'm trying to explain it without, because I'm trying to understand it, okay? Why is it being so heavily, like, pushed that all this negativity about, I think, Ineos's view of the academy? I feel like there's a really, really strong push for that there's a lot of negative, that Ineos are really negative towards the academy, and I don't understand it, because I think it's quite the opposite. I think that they actually have extremely high standards, and that's kind of what we're running into at the moment. Can you explain why the club insists the academy is not good enough yet? We're dominating them. Well, that's what I want to discuss. Because all of our good academy players play for, but then they're not successes. They're not successes. No, that's not true. All they care about is selling academy players for profit. That's not true at all. Disrespecting the academy? No, I don't think that's true. But see, I think that this is where things get misunderstood. Like MPDG, there you say there, because we've always relied on Carrington in a bad way, which isn't a good way of integrating youth, but people want it. I agree. I think that when we're talking about the academy, suddenly we're forgetting all the bad. I remember years ago when Ollie first came in, we were talking about the academy and saying, and we had this Chong, Gomez, Garner, Greenwood. And what happened? What happened with all of them? Garner never even made it really on the pitch for us, and then we was gone. Gomez never made it on the pitch for us and left. Chong never really made it on the pitch for us and was sold too late. Mason did and turned out to be a scumbag, but like, I would even consider that a part of the academy failing to provide proper, like, I don't want to blame someone for what somebody did, but like, he was a kid. And it's clear to me that there should have been more something. Guidance, maybe? I consider that like a lot of failures for the academy, that all of that was a big failure at the academy level. That wasn't successful. And we've had like these few random breakthroughs, but also the club hasn't been good enough at the same time. But the academy did, because it's not just the pathway to the first team, although I would consider that part of the academy as well. The pathway to the first team, the loans, the things like that. Like, we got Johnny Evans appointed now, doing a lot of loans. That is the academy. That is the academy, and that's been missing. That's been missing for a long time, those proper pathways. You know, we kind of Hannibal stayed too long, and he probably should have gone somewhere earlier. Iqbal, you know, we just didn't do it. I just don't think we did a great job managing all this for a long time. And again, you can argue they're two different things, because using the academy as like a big, like it's a big thing. But the academy will usually be judged by, when someone's talking about whether the academy has been successful, the academy, it's like whether it's producing talent that either make it into the first team or can successfully be sold. You know, and in that vein, I think it has been poor. And I think that we want the academy producing for a starting 11. Yeah, that's what he said, though, but that's where it's being taken out of context. And I think that that's where it is not doing so well. Like, we'll sit here and talk about how the academy record is at threat. Well, this is what he said. He said that in the future, he wants first team squad to be supplemented by more academy graduates in line with the club's history. The likes of Rashford, McTominay, Ahmad, Alejandro, and Kabi have made this step up for the past few years, but Ratcliffe claims more players should have made the grade, which is one of the reasons why he recently hired Stefan Torby from Brentford. So it's the opposite of what you think. It's not about getting people in and selling. It's about more players being created to step into the first team, is what he's talking about when he's saying it has slipped. Because it has. Scott McTominay came through a while ago. Rashford came through a long time ago. Ahmad is barely counted as an academy. He was too good for the academy the moment we bought him. We bought him for 20 million. He's not even really an academy player in that respect. Garnacho, sort of. Kabi Mainoo's like the last real, like, long-term academy prospect that we've gotten through, like the only one in 5+ years. True or not, it is. Scott McTominay made his debut 9 years ago. Rashford was 10 years ago. Kabi Mainoo is the only like actual long-term academy guy who has come into the team in a long time. Besides Mason Greenwood. The only one. We haven't actually produced an enormous amount of talent into the first team. We haven't. And, but it's also, yeah, I mean, it's good enough to produce elsewhere. I think that Fredrickson's not a first teamer, and he's not even close to good enough for one. But there's an example. What should we do with Fredrickson? Should he just linger forever? How we deal with that is about the academy as well. There's been a lot invested into young players where we can buy them recently to add to the academy in recent times, you know, to try to get more talents that can come through into the first team. United have produced a lot of players that play football all around, but you would have to say that we haven't produced as many first teamers as you would hope out of Manchester United, especially given the history, right? Considering, again, the class of 92 and how vital they were to the entire early Sir Alex era, So it's about producing more talent. You look at Barcelona's success and all of that, and it's about selling players. It is as well about selling players if they're not going to make it into the team, and being quick and good off of both aspects. We've been bad at both, frankly, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Now, I think that there has been good work that has been done, and we have this really good group. I don't think it's about not being a pathway, but the pathways, like, the problem is we've taken a bunch of academy players and said we want to give them a chance. They get a chance in the first team, and it's clear they're not good enough. It's happened a lot. We've had a lot of academy talents that look really good at the academy level that are not prepared for men's football. That is the responsibility of the academy. Once they get into the under 21s level, it should be all about preparing them for men's football. Our academy players historically have not been prepared. They haven't been going out on loan. We've all complained about that. That's being fixed. Johnny Evans getting a lot more players going out on loan. They haven't been going out. Look at how the loan did Ahmad. Look at how the loan did Ahmad. And he wasn't even really an academy player, but getting him the right loan to Sunderland completely changed the course of his career. It was going to stagnate otherwise. So I think we've been poor at the step that is preparing them for the next level in the academy for a long time. And part of that's the pathway into the first team, but part of it is the preparation at the academy level. Part of that is loans. Part of that, there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, because I look right now and I think there's a lot of good players coming, like, on the verge. We really have to manage them well. We really, 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 really have to manage them well to make sure that something comes of them. Now, we don't know how many or all of them or who is going to end up being good enough for the first team. But what you don't want to see is like the Shea Lacey's, the Mantatos, the Camasons, the Thwaites, the Fletcher, obviously JJ Gabriel be a huge talent. Cheeto. We don't want to see them stagnate, and the next 2 years we don't know what happens to them, because I feel like that's happened for a long time. There has to be a pathway, but it also have to be some way to get into men's football. And I think that's where we've been weak, is that they've not been prepared for men's football. They've not been prepared for men's football. They're just not ready. A lot of them. I wouldn't say Thwaites is ready. I think it's a crazy thing to say. Thwaites being ready in men's football? I don't think so. I think Thwaites is incredibly talented, but saying he's ready to be in a midfield in men's football, I don't know. Instability in the first team will help, obviously. I think it's more likely someone like Jimmy Thwaites needs to get a loan sooner rather than later and go play men's football somewhere first. I think that's part of what needs to happen. And see, because playing at this level, you also have to realize one of the problems United have that you don't have at small clubs. The gap between where we're trying to be as United is not the same at Brighton. The pressure isn't the same at Brighton. The pressure isn't the same at Southampton. The standard isn't the same as Southampton, in terms of what makes for a successful player in there. There's a big difference. So I don't have the answer, but we need more coming in. You need more coming through one way or another. Hopefully that happens. Everybody just always says they're all ready, and yet every time we've ended up debuting players, they haven't been. Let me just cut this back for 1 second. Who have we, in all the clamor over all these players that are ready, who have we let go of or not put through that's turned out great? The only one is Alvaro, and we barely had him. We barely had him. But there was claims during all that time that tons of players were ready. According to the club and a lot of the people around the first team, no, they weren't. And for most of them, unfortunately, they were right. I wish it wasn't so. But the only one that was actually ready was Alvaro. And that was a shame that he was gone. But we also barely had him. We brought him from Spain like 1 year earlier. 2 years earlier. And he barely got any time. And we did even get him out on loan. And actually got him into men's first team. And then they screwed that up. And that was a horrible mistake, selling Alvaro. What a terrible thing to have done. But the idea that all of these guys are ready, we've said it many, many, many times. We've said it many, many times that maybe they're not. The loan for Amos, if it's going well at Sheffield Wednesday, that's just a good thing. That means we're actually handling it right. That doesn't mean he should be in the first team today. He needs that experience. Maybe when he comes back, he will be ready. Eric's fault. Yeah. We can blame Eric. It's I think that the mark of guys like Amos doing well on loan is not a indication of failure right now. That's an indication of we're doing the right thing. They need that experience at other places. They need this experience sometimes in other clubs to be prepared to come back. But that's the point, Amy. Garner being treated like crap. But that's what I'm saying. That is a failure. That is a failure. And we can say it's just the first team or the first team coach, but it's not. It's not, Hannibal was ready, just not good enough. Yeah, and Hannibal, I think it took too long for him to get out into a first team environment as well. He needed to go earlier. He needed to go sooner. And he needed the right loans. But getting the right loans at a key stage in their development, I think, is also an important part of this. So, I don't know. It's interesting, but there feels like there's a real, I feel as though the claim is, it's not just the first team, though. It's not just the first team. That these things are not successful. It's not all just to be pinned on the first team. There are other factors in this. There are other factors in this. Again, I feel as though it's being claimed that the academy has just been successful. It does, though, Amy. It does, though. The academy has a responsibility tied, but you also have to bear in mind, when you're talking about the academy, it does include, again, I think some people are taking it kind of personally, but it does include preparation for the men's game. That's the whole point of the academy, getting the players ready for the men's game, for senior football. That is the whole point of it, getting and producing talents and helping them be ready for professional football. That is the purpose of the academy. It hasn't done that successfully. And I do feel like I said, I do feel like a lot of people are claiming it's been great. I don't think it has, because the evidence suggests that that it's just not, that we just don't have that at a high level. We don't have players that are going and, doing amazing things left and right. We just don't. It hasn't produced a lot of top talent that you would want out of an academy. And I feel as though it's being stated now that Ineos is coming in and ruining it, but I think it's the exact opposite. I think it's been failing, and now there's a lot more attention being put on it. There's players being recruited for it. I'm not saying Nick Cox did a bad job. I'm saying that as a whole, it has not been successful. It hasn't. To the level that we would need. That's why we don't have any academy players in our starting 11, because it hasn't been successful. Whether that's guidance in terms of attitude, in terms of personality, whether it's preparation physically, mentally, or otherwise for the men's game, whether it's just developing talent, whatever the reason is, it just hasn't worked. It hasn't worked to produce the level of talent we would hope that it has for the first team. There are not necessarily players ready. I don't know where it's breaking down exactly, but it feels as though we're getting a lot of players who get up to Like all of this hype as they're younger and building up, and then it fizzles. It just fizzles. And I don't know. All I know is that they're just not there. We're just not seeing it. And so I think it's accurate to state that it has slipped, because if you just look at the pure numbers of how many Manchester United first teamers the academy has given us, it's at the lowest it's ever been. It's the lowest it's ever been. For whatever reason, it's the lowest it's ever been. Whatever the reason, it's the lowest it's ever been. So I think it's easy when you talk about the academy. I think people take it really, really personally, but the fact is the academy has not brought in a lot of first teamers into United in recent years, nor have we been able to sell a bunch. And there's something that is wrong there. There's something that is wrong there that we have to figure out. And I think that's the point. That's the point of what's being improved. But again, it's not like, oh, well, that's all Nick Cox, because people like to pin it all on like one person. Like he failed. No, they wanted to keep Nick Cox. So clearly they didn't think he was the problem. It was probably underfunded, didn't sign a lot of the talents at times that other clubs did. There was we know for a fact that there was something really wrong with the nutrition and medical aspects at United, because look at the first team. We were getting injuries left and right. Look at how they've slowed down over the last 12 months. The whole medical, all sorts of stuff has improved massively at United in the last 12 months. The facilities have improved in the last 12 months. So we know there are reasons, that things have to come through. But United want to produce more in the academy. That's the ideal, and that's the right thing. And the thing, and the reason I say I find the whole thing, so that I find the whole thing odd, is that like let's take this article for example, okay? Let's take this article for example. This is the headline. No offense, Laurie, if you see this is the headline. You've got to go all the way down to here for the real headline, which is that they're building an entirely new academy structure. Shouldn't that have been the head? People don't even know that. People didn't even realize this till the next day when another story came out. It was like it was trying to be hidden in this piece, no offense, that they were building an academy, a brand new academy structure to match the first team facility on the same site. That they had to hire people, and then they were going to go ahead with this. Isn't that the headline? It's just odd to me. That is, hey, we want to go invest millions in building a brand new academy facility, would have been my headline. Why is it being hidden? Why is it being hidden? Why is that? Why is it instead about washing clothes or things like that being the headline? When it was also stated that the laundry isn't done at Carrington anymore, and it's all outsourced, by the way. But like, what? I don't know. I'm just confused. So I look at those things and I go, it's like there's a presentation being put here that like United Academy has been ultimately super successful, and now it's being killed, when it's really the opposite. I think there's been more investment, more attention, and more focus put than ever on the academy. I think there were people here in the last few years who were also on that same train and working towards that, like Nick Cox and such. But, moving Darren Fletcher into the academy seems like a brilliant move. Appointing Johnny Evans to the loans team seems like a brilliant move. Making a new academy structure seems like a brilliant move to me. Like, these things seem smart to me. We got a new director, fine. They didn't want to get rid of Nick Cox, so it's not like anybody's sitting there saying Nick Cox is a failure. But he wanted to leave, so they had to get somebody else, you know? How we sell academy players without a stellar facility. True. Yeah, that's what it's for, right? Build the facility so that it is. So we've been struggling. And I think that these are all good things. And for some reason, they're being taken negatively, and I don't understand it. It's very strange to me. I've only seen good things in this direction, because I look at the end of the day, we're sitting here every day saying, hey, we have no academy players. And I don't know, are people trying to pin that on Ineos? Are people trying to pin that purely on Ruben Amorim, that we have no academy players in the first team? Because Eric sold off Forsen and tried to force Forsen into the team. That didn't work. Sold Delanca, sold Alvaro, you know. That all happened before. So, like, but they weren't good enough. Alvaro maybe, but the rest, they weren't good enough anyways. So, I don't know. I'm curious as why this is all taken so negatively at the moment, the whole view on the academy. I think that what we've seen in the past has been a bit of cope, where we've forced young players onto the pitch, and it's been like a feel-good moment, but ultimately they all failed. You know, like I remember, I'm not saying we shouldn't have done it either, mind you, but I remember, you know, like when we got, you know, there was times like end of seasons, things like that, different games when we were like, we got Chong into the game and we got Hannibal and we got this and we got that. And we got these players in, and it was like, wow, academy players. And then, well, they just weren't good enough. And it's like, well, okay, so I guess it was just like an exercise. You know, there was a season under Ten Hag, there was a point where there was a game where we put on like 3 academy players, Dan Gore and all these guys, right? But then, and it's like a feel-good moment, but what did that actually accomplish? We ended up with fewer academy players than ever in the first team. Literally, fewer than ever before in the first team. So what did those, like, was that being, like, it wasn't effective. So my view on things is a little more practical. I look at it and I'm like, these like feel good PR, like, oh, we're just going to throw academy kids on the pitch and that keeps our identity, but they failed. They didn't end up in the first team. Nothing actually came of that. But everybody got to look back and say, oh, look, we got academy players on the pitch. Wow, look at how much Ten Hag cares about the academy. Look at how much. But it didn't actually do anything. It was bullshit. It was like, it was a Fugazi, you know, it was for show. Nothing actually happened. You know, there was the time like Iqbal got a breakthrough, and then we sold him for 500,000. You know, he signed for SEG and got sold for 500,000 to some Dutch team. Like, what were we doing over here? You know what I mean? So, no, I don't have this rosy-eyed view of how things have gone. I'm not talking about like watching the under 16s and under 18s, because there's people who do a lot of that. They watch that. They see what's going on at those levels. They like a lot of things going on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our production line into the first team has been totally screwed up. It's been wrong. And I think that there's been these feel-good moments where people are going, oh, look at how we care about the academy. And they've been bullshit. They've been for show. They've been a facade, when we actually had no fucking clue how to produce talents and get them into the first team properly and integrate them correctly. You know? And now we're seeing a slower, more deliberate, more like, I don't know, you know, it just, we're seeing a different approach to it, where we're not seeing academy players just tossed in, and it's being critiqued, and I get that, but I would suggest that maybe they're just doing it the right way and waiting for the right players at the right times in the right environments when they're really prepared before doing it, rather than just doing it so they can say we did it. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I think. That's kind of what I think. So I think that it's been, we're taking it slower because it's the right way. That's just my opinion. I don't know if people see it that way or not, but I'm seeing a lot of positives on the academy, and I think that people, yeah, I think there's a lot of good things there actually, and I think people are totally wrong on the idea, because I think again it was completely misquoted on just trying to profit off the academy. The actual talk was about getting more first teamers created. That was actually the point, and that's what we want. So if you can sell some players and raise a few extra funds that are not good enough for United, great, let's do it. But ideally, I would love to see, as a United fan, more academy players actually making the first team. That's what makes me feel the academy has been a success, is when we can do that. And then the first team itself has to settle down as well. And that's a good portion of this too, in terms of the questions. Why are we not getting at least some of these guys a few more chances? Well, look at what we started the conversation on. Not enough minutes for Josh Zirkzee, not enough minutes for Mainoo. It's hard to integrate academy players when you're having that problem with two established first-team senior players, one purchased for $35 million and one who is a full-blooded like England international that has been in the first-team environment for 3 years. If we don't have the minutes and the environment for them, it's hard to integrate academy players. Who are we? I get, like, it's easy to say, kick Dallo out of the team and put Camison or Mantato in, right? I'd be for it. Don't get me wrong. I'd be for it, but that's not realistic. Nobody really does that. It's not realistic. I think we should, but it's not realistic. You know what I mean? When we're struggling to give minutes to Zirkzee and Mainoo, it's hard to say, yeah, we could just bring some academy players up through. We did it in the cup. It's not just because of the choices the manager's making. No, it's not just that. It really isn't. Like, and even if it is, you don't know that they're going to do better than Diogo Dallo. We played Fredrickson in the League Cup, and he was the worst player against the League Two side on the pitch. Truth. And I'm not trying to like give a real hard time to the kid, but he was a boy amongst men against a League Two side. So maybe that it's just the view that they're not good enough yet, or they're not ready, and that it would be detrimental, that it's easy for us to say, we'll just bench Dallo and play some youth player. Maybe it just wouldn't work out that well, Maybe it just wouldn't work out that well. I don't know. We can't be sure of that. That it would just work out that brilliantly. We just have to be a bit patient. Heaven had a rough game in that one too. I think Heaven's a good player, and he's shown some in the Premier League as well. I don't know that I would say he played very well versus Wolves. He also played, I think, against Brentford and had a really, really rough time as well, from what I recall. So there's been a few occasions, but I'm saying he got a chance, and I think we've seen enough to know that he's not necessarily good enough at this point in time. But patience is needed there. Patience is needed there for sure. So we will see. But I think when you look at a lot of the players, there are players that are pushing it, right? I think that Shea Lacey, he will need to get into a first team environment soon, and I think he's good enough, right? And he's been in the first team training and things like that. Shea Lacey will need to and should get on the pitch for United this year. I think so, personally. I think that would be, I don't think he needs to be like a permanent first teamer or anything like that anytime soon. But I think he's a player that is good enough, has the ability, like Mainoo has been earmarked from a young age to be someone who's been ready. And I think he will be ready now that he's like picked up his fitness and things like that. One of the Fletcher kids, I think, could come in, take up some minutes there in the midfield at times. I think that JJ Gabriel will get a taste of the first team in the FA Cup. I think they will. I think there's a chance there. He's too young. He's ineligible for the Premier League. And then Mantato too. I think when we made, Mantato too. Mantato. Mantato's someone I would like to see get in, because I think he was on. But to be fair to Mantato, he got his, like, let's be real here for a second, okay? Mantato went on. He was there. Some of these players went with team on summer tour, if you recall. Mantato played against Leeds in Norway, if I'm not mistaken. Had a bit of a rough time, which is fine. It may well simply be the observation, and believe me, this is where I think people are not getting it right. It is not just on the manager. There are a lot of people involved in the decision about whether players are ready to move the step up into the first team and things. And for one of the critiques that's an interesting one, Jason Wilcox is and was a very successful academy director, and he is heavily involved in that assessment as well. So ideally, I think there are players that are almost there, but certainly they're well within their rights, the club, to say, hey, maybe they're not yet. We'll see. I have high hopes by the end of the season that we're seeing a bit more once the first team is a bit more settled. But like, the constant drama around the first team doesn't help. There's no doubt about that. Constantly talking about whether we should sack the manager or this and that doesn't help. We need to get into a state where it's not like game to game massive pressure, because it's hard to fucking integrate youth players in that kind of culture and environment. You know what I'm saying? We need a bit more stability. You need even as simple as you would hope the first team is tactically, strategically all settled and everybody knows what they're doing before you bring in the academy. But I really hope we do over the course of this year. But I think to the contrary of the narrative, it's a huge focus. It's a huge focus. It's a huge focus to get it going a bit more, and I hope that it does. I think that there are really, really, really good players in the academy levels that will be ready soon, and I think we just have to get it right in getting them into the first team environment properly, because I think there's a potential more players right now that could end up in United's first team than we've had in a long time. When you look at that age group, the under 18s and some of the ones that are coming to under 21s, there's so many really, really good players here. Ruben said we give too much to our young players too early, right? And I think that's part of it too. I don't think Garnacho was managed well. I think Garnacho was a better player when he came in as a substitute early on, bit part player under Ten Hag, than he even was by the end. I think he was better when he first came in. He was confident, he was direct, he was explosive. And I think it was too much too soon. And he actually became a worse player, in my opinion, as time went on. So I think there's that aspect of managing things well.
Do you think the young players who left and proved themselves elsewhere were never good enough for United, or do you think we're failing in our promotion of them?
A bit of both, but I don't think there are that many young players who left and proved themselves elsewhere. Like, in terms of being good enough for United, we've had plenty of players leave and prove themselves as competent footballers, and that's fine. The standard at United, we know, has to be higher. You know what I'm saying? But like, who have we, besides Alvaro, who have we really left that have gone on to be like, oh, we screwed up and they could have been great? Not that many. That's why I genuinely say maybe we just haven't been producing good enough talent, or maybe the talents that we have produced, we've been screwing up one stage of their development and essentially making it so they never could be as good as they maybe could have been. Because I think those are such important development years, especially like once they hit 18 to 20. If they're good, they've got to get into a first team environment fast, in my opinion. They have to get into a first team environment really fast if they're at 18 to 20 years old. They need to be playing men's football to take those steps. But we haven't really had that many. I think Alvaro's maybe the only one. And he wasn't here that long. I mean, he spent a lot of time, obviously, in the Spanish academies and such beforehand. But we actually did get him out on loan, you know? So I wouldn't argue for Garner and Elanga, because while Garner might be a good midfielder for us now, that doesn't mean he's good enough for what we should be. That just means we've screwed up our midfield recruitment for too long, frankly. You know, Garner doesn't make it into the rebuild that we would have. I don't think he's good. I think Garner's a good footballer. I don't think Garner would be playing for United when we're finished rebuilding the squad. So, you know, the standard has also got to be a bit higher, you know? And so some of it's not even a failing. It's more like, since we need a bit of a higher standard, we probably should be moving players out quickly. I think we moved Elanga at the right time. I don't think Elanga would even be the type of play. Like, I think Elanga is almost an example where we probably got it right. He got chances at United. He was physically ready to play football, but not good enough for what United would want, would aim for. And we sent him off, and he grew somewhere else and got to play football in a place and a position that suited him. I think we handled that one well. I don't think that was even a failing. I think that's one of the more successful ones where we should be doing that more. It's okay if they go and become something more somewhere else because they get that opportunity. Elanga found his level at Forest playing in a deep block counterattacking side, moved on to Newcastle. It's not going so. But, you know, that was somewhat predictable, but it's fine. It's fine. You know, it's okay. It's all okay. You know, there are things we've done well, and there's things we haven't. And I just think we haven't produced and helped form world-class talents in a long time. You know, so I'd like to see us to be able to accomplish that more. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of discuss it. I don't know where people are really at. I think there's a lot of good things, but I do think that when you look at the outcomes, we have failed the academy over time. And personally, I guess I'm just saying that I think what I see as things going the right way on this. I think there's been a lot of new care being put to the academy that sometimes looks different than, you know, you might think. The other thing I want to discuss really briefly, I'm gonna reach backwards. You know what's really funny? We're gonna talk very briefly about Viktor Gyokeres. Because once again, I tell you, I was one of the only people, if not the only person, to correctly state that United made a strong move for Viktor Gyokeres. And his agent has now confirmed we agree to deal with Sporting, higher than what Arsenal agreed, and we're trying to push it through. I got a lot of shit for that one, for saying that I was BSing about making that all up, that we weren't going for Gyokeres, that we weren't going for a 9, that I just wanted us to sign Gyokeres, all of that. We did. Now, am I glad in retrospect that we missed out? Maybe. I think people are passing judgment on Gyokeres a bit too soon, but I'm really happy with Šeško. I'm really happy with Šeško. I'm really happy with it. So it's whatever. But it just goes to show, when it comes to information, when it comes to these things, it's really funny because, like, people only tend to hear about the successes, you know, and then they assume that just because you talked about players that we didn't sign, that what you said was wrong. I wasn't wrong. In fact, I rarely am. I rarely am. You know? We did push to agree very hard a deal for Viktor Gyokeres. So, anyway, it is what it is. It's just funny how judgment is passed. It's just funny how judgment is passed on these types of things, you know, in terms of all of that. Like you go back to that big chart that I made that people bring up from time to time. That chart is really accurate. We tried to sign like 80% of the players on there. We made contacts. We had negotiations. We have things like that. And we did. Just because we didn't get them doesn't mean the information was wrong. That's like a really childish view of things. So it was the same. I said for a long time in the start of this summer that we were pushing very hard for Viktor Gyokeres. He was a huge priority. We tried. And we were not that far off at some points. Is Gyokeres a flop or does Arte? See, that's the thing, right? When it's there because they're somewhat successful right now, everybody's going to call him a flop. He's a terrible fit for Arsenal. I'm still so confused why he went to Arsenal. Dumbest decision. And that, for me, makes him a stupid player. The decision to choose Arsenal that made no sense systematically for the way he plays was just so stupid. I'm really happy with Šeško. I'm really, really happy with Šeško. And I have my doubts on him. I love, if I have doubts and they go and get somebody and it works out, that's perfect. They should know better. They should know better than we do. He's done more than Wirtz. He's definitely better than Wirtz. But honestly, I think Gyokeres in a different system than what Arsenal play would be significantly better. But I am happy with what we got. I'm just not going to run victory laps yet because you never know. You never know. You never know where things will turn out. But where I am running that victory lap is on the information. I know what I'm talking about. Okay? I know what I'm talking about when it comes to info. I know what we tried to do. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to end it there. I think that's it. Trade Zirkzee for Gyokeres. I would do that. That would help both clubs. But let's end it there. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. I'm going to head out now. See you later, everybody. I hope you have a good evening. I hope you have a good weekend. I'll probably be back with some stuff over the weekend, depending on what comes out. Yeah, that's it. Next week, I'll have some stuff on Monday, and then sporadically between Tuesday and Friday, we'll see. Depends on how my days are, travel, things like that. But I'll be taking a bit of a break, certainly. Probably, I will definitely not be having these lives in the afternoon, Tuesday through Friday next week. We will not be having these late afternoon or evening lives. Maybe super early morning or super late night, depending on where you are, or something else. But yeah. But we'll see this weekend, okay? Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Make sure to catch the video earlier if you want that concise explainer on the whole takeover noise and all of that. And thank you all. See you later. See you, Alexi. See you, Big O. See everybody else who has been here contributing to the chat. Appreciate you all, and enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.